Now that's a great presentation right there. I mean, it works. Now, I wouldn't use that presentation about life insurance, did you die? Not with all customers. Well, Mr. Ziegler, I trade my cars frequently. I probably won't keep it for the complete term of the loan. Well, that's great, Mr. Customer, because our coverage is extremely flexible. As a matter of fact, it's designed for buyers just like yourself. Now, if you sell your car to a private owner, it is infinitely more valuable if it has a transferable parts and labor program. If you can transfer that coverage, which ours is, you can transfer that coverage to a subsequent buyer. It makes your car much more valuable. The service contract is too expensive. I'll take my chances. Now, how many times have you heard that? Well, Mr. Customer, what mostly concerns you about the expense of it? It's $3,500. It's $2,500. Says so right here in the contract. Sir, that $2,500 figure on the contract is a completely fictional figure. You will never pay the $2,500. Well, yes, I will. Mr. Ziegler, it says right here, $2,500. Mr. Customer, that $2,500 you're paying for the parts and labor program is only the amount you would pay if you kept the car for the full term of the service contract. In this case, 6 years or 100,000 miles, whichever occurs first. Mr. Customer, your habits show you never keep a car 6 years or 100,000 miles. You trade in frequently before that period expires. Unlike other insurances, with a service contract, a parts and labor program, you only pay for exactly what you use as you use it. Everybody listen to what I just said. You only pay for exactly what you use as you use it. In all 50 states, service contracts are refunded pro rata on cancellation. And what that means is it's spread out evenly, not on the rule of 78 where you pay a lot in the beginning and a little bit at the end. No, service contracts are refunded pro rata based on miles or term, whichever the greatest percentage of has elapsed. So if you've used 40% of the service contract miles, and that's the determining predominant factor in the refund, you've used 40%, you'll get a 60% refund. Some service contract companies charge a disposal fee, but it's not even worth figuring. But anyway, if you use 60%, you're going to get a 40% refund. But if the miles overpower, if the term overpowers the miles, say you've got a 5-year service contract, 50,000 miles, and you use 4 years, 10,000 miles. That 4 years is going to be overpowering the mileage. You'll get a 20% refund. You used 80% of the time. So service contracts are refunded based on miles or term, whichever the greatest percentage of has elapsed. So knowing that, Mr. Customer, you're only going to pay for exactly the value you received, what you actually used. You will never pay the whole amount because if you trade the car in or sell it, the unearned portion of that service contract is refunded directly to you or to the bank and taken off the payoff on the contract. You will never pay that much. The only time you would actually pay the full amount of the service contract is if you kept the car for the full 6 years or the full 100,000 miles, whichever came first. And that is very unlikely. I'll take my chances. How many times have you heard that? Well, Mr. Ziegler, this car is a Honda. Now, Mr. Ziegler, Honda builds a great car. As a matter of fact, your sales representative just stood out in the middle of the parking lot and told me this car could take a direct ground zero nuclear hit. Now you're telling me my car is going to break. Well, Mr. Customer, Honda builds an excellent car. But like most cars, it's 15,000 high-tech component parts. Plastic, metal, rubber, glass, space-age materials, welded, riveted, bolted, fused, glued together by human beings and robots. Some of these parts moving at speeds in excess of 10,000 RPMs. less than 3/1000th of an inch of clearance, 1/1000th of an inch of lubrication, rubbing, abrading against each other, creating high levels of heat, with more than 10 times the computer memory we put Apollo 11 on the moon with in 1969. Mr. Customer, if we built this car 98% perfect, 300 parts would fail. If we built this car 99.9% perfect, 15 parts would fail. Now listen to that, Mr. Customer, 15,000 high-tech component parts. Plastic, metal, rubber, glass, space-age materials, welded, bolted, stapled, riveted, glued, fused together by human beings and robots. Some of these parts moving at speeds in excess of 10,000 RPMs with less than 3/1000th of an inch of clearance, 1/1000th of an inch of lubrication, rubbing and abrading against each other, creating high levels of heat with more than 1,000 times the computer memory we put Apollo 11 on the moon with in 1969. Mr. Customer, 98% perfect, 300 parts would fail. 99.9% perfect, 15 parts would fail. We built a great automobile. We're willing to stand behind it. But, Mr. Customer, the possibilities are strong that you're going to have a repair. Very strong. You only pay for exactly what you use, and any amount you don't use is either refunded to you or transferable to the next owner. It has value. Well, Mr. Ziegler, I'm eligible to buy this service contract for 3 years after I buy the car. Yes, sir, you are. But I've had several price increases this year. You're not going to be able to pay the same amount you paid for it today. And when you come back 2 or 3 years from now, we're still going to put it back to today's miles, today's date as a starting point. It doesn't start when you buy it. It starts when you took delivery. So you're going to lose all that coverage. The additional coverage is of the rental car, the towing, the trip interruption, the parts, the wear and tear, and the consequential damage. You're going to lose that coverage. And you're probably going to end up putting it on a credit card at a higher interest rate as opposed to putting it on a contract today at an extremely low interest rate. And not only that, Mr. Customer, but you and I both know you'll probably procrastinate and never do it. You know, procrastination is terrible. I can't tell you how many customers did not buy the service contract and they meant to buy it later, and they come in my office crying because they had a major repair unanticipated and they forgot to buy the service contract. Excuse me, Mr. Customer, it's time to make that decision now. It's a small, known, manageable amount, something you can handle. Probably at $20 or $30 a month to your payment, as opposed to a catastrophic event coming at you when you're least prepared for it. And one of my best presentations is when I show the customer I have one on my own car. I keep in my wallet a copy of my registration for the service contract I bought on my own car. And I show it to the consumer, Mr. Customer, I believe in it. And one of my best presentations, I'll leave you with this. I believe in it. You need it. If you were one of my own personal relatives, I would never allow you to leave this dealership without purchasing this. That's how strongly I believe in it. Is there anything I could explain to you about this coverage? Is there anything I could explain to you about this coverage before we sign off on it and move on? That is the strongest presentation in the world.